Welcome back. As a reminder, tomorrow will be our last day for the advanced bookkeeping. They'll be opening the next class, the Microsoft Office Specialist, and I will let you know by email when that class becomes available to register. And if you're interested, sign up or let everybody know it's available because there's no cost and it's just as fun as QuickBooks. Come on in, have a seat. I didn't even notice that. That is a coincidence. Yeah, I think that's a dead link. How you doing? All right, well, welcome back, everybody. So once you have your QuickBooks loaded, we're going to do a couple of fun things in QuickBooks. Let you use your creative side. But first, there is a switch you can use, and its purpose is when you're in an office that you don't want everybody to see your information, and you get up and say you go get a cup of coffee. So you'll see this privacy button. All it is when you turn it on, it hides financial information. So you'll see the business overview, and even when we were on Get Things Done, it had all the graphs and some figures, and basically how much money you earned this week and that kind of thing. It just hides it. And it doesn't delete it, just hides it. So it keeps prying eyes from seeing it. That means you don't have to log off all the time. I can turn it back on. And then this doesn't have any of the good stuff, but if you look here at the business overview, it tells you how much money you have in your savings account and your checking account, how much you've earned, that kind of thing. So just keeps prying eyes. You can still use QuickBooks with this turned off, by the way. So if you want to leave it off, and like if I go into sales and my customers, I can still work with customers. And some things do show up. You just lose a lot of the quick overviews. So it doesn't hurt anything. So I go ahead and leave it on. But it's your call. And that's one of those things you can turn it on and off temporarily, depending on how you need it. So I mentioned we're going to try to do a couple of creative things here. And so one thing is we're going to create a logo for the business. So there's a couple ways to get into it. The short way is you can just click on the little box where it says logo, or that'll let you get into the account settings. You can also do that in here with the little cog and accountant settings. So either way. And here it comes up. So this is where you set up your company name and legal name and everything else. And you're going to edit by clicking this little pencil. And that'll let us make the change. So why are company logos important? Well, they're more than just window dressing. I mean, it is nice to see your logo on there, but also whenever you're sending out documents, like invoices, for example, or even if you have QuickBooks generate your checks, it's good to have the logo on there because it just identifies your business as opposed to others. And as I mentioned before, a lot of businesses are using QuickBooks. So a lot of the documents look very similar to each other. So one company's invoice is going to look a lot like another company's invoice. So it's a good idea to differentiate it as best you can. And one way is a logo. Okay. So I'm going to click here. This little plus will let me, oops, there it is, add a logo. The logo can be any graphic file. If you have a JPEG file, for example, you can use it. You can also use clip art. So the problem with using clip art is it's generic, and somebody else might be using it. And then you might have to deal with rights, like issues of who owns the artwork. On the other hand, there are some ways to make up a quick logo, and we'll go over a couple of those. So one thing I need to do is I'm going to just find some clip art. So what I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to create a new window next to my QuickBooks. I'm just going to bring up Google. So my store is named Dan's Convenience Store. So that gives me a couple ideas. I'll just put in convenience store. And then when you're using Google, I'm sure you run into this, you've got the images up here. It'll do a search on images that are tagged with those words. So here's a few things. And then you can kind of mix and match and edit. Or I'm just going to take out the word store and let's just try convenience. Pick a keyword. There's some interesting things. So I'm going to pick something like this. Whenever you see a picture, the way Google's showing it to you, it's showing you all the pictures that it thinks best match the word, the keyword. And then here, that kind of looks very convenient for me. So let's say this is the one I wanted. I can, from here, save it, or I can visit the site and look at it some more. In this case, I'm going to use my right mouse button and save image as, and it's going to go to my downloads folder. And I'm going to give it a name here. So that just downloaded it. I can see it by going back to my QuickBooks up here. Click on that tab. And now when I click the plus to add a picture, there it is in downloads. And there we go. So you can add multiple pictures here, but usually you just have one logo. Now a company can change logos. Just ask Facebook. Now they're Meta, and they have a whole new logo. And they'll do that. You know, sometimes they'll do a makeover. Microsoft is notorious for this for the Microsoft Office products. Every time they come out with a new version, they try to give it each version a new logo, just to distinguish it. You'll see there when you click on the picture, might be an X if you want to delete it, but I want to select that and I'm going to save it. So if it works, your new logo should pop up here, and you could just put in something temporarily and come back later. And then I need to save again here. And now when I close my account and settings, it needs to refresh. When it refreshes, it should come up, but it didn't. Oh, there it is. Just slow. Just took a while to load. So there's my logo. So now, when you print out any kind of document, any form, if it's got your name on it, it's going to have the logo to go with it. And so that's kind of handy. So I'm going to pick on one I've had before. So here's an invoice I made before for Mike Candy. I'm going to click on the print preview. And here's how my invoice would look like on paper if I printed it. Now, here's the thing. You'll notice this invoice I created last week or so. I just added the new logo today. So what it does, it only retains one logo. And even if you go back into history, it's going to put the new logo on it. So that would change. So when it records the invoices, it's recording the data of the invoice, not an actual picture of the invoice. However, if you had printed this or you saved it as a PDF, of course, that's not going to change. But just keep an eye on that. So let's go back. All right, so there you go. It's that easy to have a logo if you've already had it done up for you. Now, some companies don't have it, especially my little company. I just pulled that off of clip art somewhere. So there's a couple of options you can use to create your own or have one made up. Nowadays, there's websites like Fiverr and 99 Designs, and they'll do a logo cheap. 99 Designs, you put out like a bid to different designers, and they'll give you an estimate, and it can be you tell them how much you want to pay. What can I get for Dan's convenience store for $50? And they'll say, here, try this. What about this or something? And they'll give you ideas, and then you pick it or not. So, very inexpensive, or you could just design your own. When computers got really popular, a lot of people thought, why am I paying people to design things for me when I could do it myself? Well, when you start doing it, you kind of find out why. Unless you have a creative bent, sometimes they can look amateurish. But there are a lot of tools where you can make some your own, and essentially take something like basic artwork and then manipulate it to make it something different. So here's how to do this. Let me go to back up here to convenience. So one of the things you can do is take a print screen, and unless who's ever created the artwork has blocked it, which is pretty rare, then you can snap it off your laptop as a basic print screen. So let's say I wanted a portion of this picture right here. What I can do is on my keyboard, I have got a button and it says print screen. Well, it doesn't say print screen, it says print screen right there. So that means take a snapshot of whatever I am looking at. All right. Sometimes it's on another key and it will be subscript. Like up here, you see how the plus is above the equal sign? So the plus is subscript. So it'll be part of a key with an option. So a lot of times what you do is Control Shift print screen, and that'll take a screenshot. So let me do that. So I'm going to hit print screen. I did. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you, oh, I just printed the screen frame. Depending on your browser too, the browser I'm using allows screen capture too. You'll see it says take screenshot, which means if I selected that, I can take any chunk on the screen, like these two items together if I wanted to, and see I can copy them or download it. The print screen puts the page in your, I'm gonna cancel this, in your clipboard. So now I'm gonna open up graphics program. It is Microsoft here. It's Microsoft Paint, a very basic Microsoft program. Almost all Microsoft products come with it. So it's free, that's a good part. If not, you can download one for free, or it might be now Microsoft Paint 3D, which is the new one they're pushing. I still like Paint. I don't do that much 3D rendering myself. It's nice, but this is fast and easy. So I have a little blank screen here. I'm going to Control V for paste. We'll see what it did. It pasted in everything, and I mean everything, including that I was on Google. So I'm going to drag this portion in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to go down in the lower right-hand corner. You've got a little control handle here. It just brings it up and basically crops off everything I didn't want. Now, I'm going to crop some more. So I'm going to select it, drag it up to where I really just get convenience. See that? So now I can click on my letter A, click in here. Find a good spot for that. Well, I can't see my name too well, so I'm going to put a shape on here. So I want a white oval there, another white oval down here. Spell my name right. And there we go. So now I'm going to save that. Save it in my downloads. I'm going to switch it to a JPEG format. That's the pretty standard one. Call it down store. Go back to QuickBooks now. I can just click on the logo here. So now I got that little plus. I'll click on the plus, which is add, and here we go. And I'll add this to my list. Save this as my new logo. Then I'm going to delete my old logo with this little black X or black circle with the X in it, just to make sure it doesn't pop up. I'll click save, close. There we go. So that's a quick and easy way to throw in a logo. And then another quick way is I'm going to use Microsoft Word. So in Microsoft Word, you do have word art. And that allows you to use some colors and different design elements. And you can spend hours and hours on this. But I'm just going to show you a quick, easy way. So I'm going to change the font to something like this. Zoom in. So I got my letter D. I copied and pasted it. C. Paste it again. S. For Dan's Convenience Store. There you go. If you want, you can put flowers on it. Put little products behind it and all kinds of stuff, or just keep it plain like that. Then again, I can take a screenshot and put this back into my Paint program, or rather than go back there, I can paste it here. So I'm taking my print screen. And here's a screenshot of the screen I'm actually looking at. But what I just did is I converted it into a picture, an image. And the reason I need to do that is I am going to first crop out the stuff we don't need. And then I want to save it as an image, not as 3 letters. There we go. So they look the same, but see how I can break up the S? I can't do it on this one. Because this is now all one image. So while I have it on here, I can right click on it, save as picture. Go to my downloads. And I'm gonna switch it to a JPEG just because that's pretty standard. And I'm gonna switch back to QuickBooks. And let's add the new logo in here. Well, let's see, I didn't save it right. So real quick, I'm gonna go back to my Microsoft Paint. Save it as a JPEG. Now I'll go back to QuickBooks. There we go. Let's try this again. There it is. Now just to clean things up, I'm going to delete the old one. What I found is there are times where sometimes it crops up there if it doesn't completely refresh. So just having the one image, make sure that's the one that shows up. And there it is. So something that easy. The idea, again, it doesn't have to be a master artwork, just needs to be distinctive. And you can develop a temporary logo for now, and then next year, when you got some time, some money, get a fancy one. It just kind of depends what you want to do with it. But the real goal is, like I said, just to show something. So when people see this on documents, it'll stand out from everybody else, from Frank's convenience store or something. I use a story of when we first started the QuickBooks class. I was walking, well, what we did is we ran paper, everything was in paper. This is before the age of electronic PDFs really kicked in. So we'd practice off of paper, and I made up some phony invoices that students would key in, and there were lots of them. So one day I was walking by the director's desk, and as I was walking, I saw one of my invoices there. Oh, what did that, how did this get over here? And I grabbed it, just, I didn't even think about it. And I walked back to my classroom, and I sat down, and I looked at it, and I thought, oh, this is a real invoice. This actually came from somebody. But because they had used the default layout for QuickBooks, it looked exactly the same. And the problem with that is, as I think I mentioned earlier, you want to do all you can for, I hate to say it this way, but the dumbest person you have to work with. In other words, the person who doesn't know what they're doing can really hurt you if their job is to pay you money and they can't keep things straight. So they're sending you somebody else's checks. Well, it doesn't do any good. If you have $100,000 of product in that you sent to them, and they pay you somebody else's check, it's not like you can cash that check and then say, bill me the rest or send me a check for the rest. You have to basically return it, start over again. So keep it simple so that you don't have people like me who walk by and say, oh, look at this, and just grab it. And you can make it very distinctive. You can do that with the kind of paper you use, if you still use paper. And then even on the PDFs, you can change backgrounds and things and do things along those lines. So that is a possibility for your store. Nowadays, if your company already has a logo, usually you can ask whoever's in charge to send you a copy, like a JPEG file, save it, and do like we just did. So most companies usually will, if they're established, will have a logo. The other way to do it, quick and easy, is they say, well, we had that at one time. I don't know where it is, but I can get it. Let me get it for you. I'll let you know. That's okay. I got it. Just find an already used image of the logo. Take your phone out, take a snapshot. That works. You can just crop it up and clean it up, even if it's like the sign in the building. Yeah, just go do that. And then with Word, there are some editing features where you can change it a little bit. So if it comes out kind of muddy, let me show you. Go back to Word here. So let me insert that first logo that we did. This one here. Wrap it in front of the test so it'll float around a bit. Okay. So once you have the image, you can use any editing program. I'm just going to use Word. Word has artistic effects. So you'll see that up here. You can click on that. And now, let's say I want to really make it look different. Here, I click on it. I forget, that one's like photocopy or something. No. They call it glow edges. Here's another one to make it look like you're looking through glass. So you can really obscure it, but you still kind of get like something's happening. And then if I wanted to, I could take my letters here. And layer them like that. Oops. Then I can still take the image. Under the picture tools, you've got color. So if I want, I could try to like put a different color background, turns everything into shades of blue in this case. You can lighten it with the corrections and make it a very light background like that. And all kinds of crazy. The advantage to this, by the way, if you do like I did, I took somebody's image. I have no idea who that belongs to. I didn't create it, of course, right? But I did modify it. And if you modify it significantly, you can kind of call it a new piece of artwork. So you wouldn't have to pay for it. But on the other hand, if you get something that's designed especially for you, that works better. But if you take a logo snapshot from the outside of a building, it might, when it comes over, it might look a little dark. Just use this color here and the corrections to modify it. You can lighten it up. You can make it darker if it came out, it's kind of washed out. Like that too. So you can use photos. And again, depending on how really creative you are, if you're not too worried, you just want whatever our logo is, I want it up there and I'm not too crazy about how it looks or too worried about it. Taking a photo works great. And if you were creating a letterhead, you really do want it to be crisp and clear. But for something like an invoice, it doesn't take much. So just anything that looks unique. Now, I will say there are differences between the online version of QuickBooks and the desktop version. And one of them is that when you're working with these tools to create different style invoices, you actually have a lot more flexibility on the desktop version. As we're going to see, the online version does have some things, but it doesn't have near as much control as you do on the desktop. So just know that there are some differences. All right, so now that we got our logo, let's use it on a document. So let's go into sales, customers, and we're going to make an invoice. There it comes. So pick a customer, any customer, create an invoice, any products, just like we've done before. So I'm going to use low esteem. But change the date to October 1st. So the reason we're making the change, oops, no. The reason we're making the change is we want to have her be late. I want to give her two things here. Oops. I'm going to change my items because so what's happening, you can see my screen. I set the reorder points, but I set them on a date that's after when I'm saying the invoice date is. I mean, yeah, but I don't think I set reorder points to everything. So let me pick items that don't have reorder points. Did I set reorder points to everything? Ah, hand sanitizers. I don't have reorder points set. There we go. Okay. So there we go. You'll see she is overdue. So now I finally have something in my overdue column. So I have a couple options. One here is you can send a reminder and you can send it by email, and they have a standard text that they use, but you can modify it. It's friendly reminder, this invoice is due. Or in this case, I'm going to create a statement. I can also do this, by the way, back here at customers. If I go to Lois and use the pick list here, one of the options has always been send a statement. If she doesn't owe us anything, there's no real reason to send a statement, unless you just wanted to prove that it was paid off. So keep in mind that you only can send statements based on invoices. The reason is if you're doing a sales receipt, the sales receipt is immediately paid when they receive the product. So there's no delay. So they'd never be late. That's the idea. If they're going to do that, or they're going to pay you later, then it shouldn't be a sales receipt. It should be on an invoice. Okay. Up top in the left-hand corner, you'll see there's some types. So if you just want to send a list of transactions, that'll show everything she's done. Or in our case, a balance forward. So here's the current balance she owes. So down here, you can save and close. You can click on statements available. Save and close. Okay, now when I click on Lois, I can see way back here is when she made her payment. Pardon me, when she made the invoice. Go back to customers. So that's the way you can send out a statement to customers that are overdue. I'm going to now receive her payment, just so I won't have that overdue. And I'm going to change it so it's directly to the checking account instead of payments to deposit. That was undeposited funds. And save and close. So now look at my customers and everybody's got a good balance of 0, all paid up. So that's how you can generate statements. If you ever have a customer, sometimes they might have had troubles on their end. They might ask you for a favor to run them a transaction report. You can certainly do that. Send them all the transactions. It'll only show them their information. So, that's fair enough to share between two people. So that would be nice. And then you make a happy customer in that regard. And that does happen, especially like at the end of the year when they realize, oh, I should have been tracking this for taxes or something. They might call you up and ask you for that. You can charge a fee for that. Say, oh, it's a $15 processing fee. Or just do it for the sake of good customer relationships. All right. So it's 6:53. When we come back at 7:03, we're going to modify our invoice styles. And again, really easy to do. We'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back 7:03. Oh, it didn't charge all the way? Want another one?
Because it turned off.
Yeah.
And
If there's one of these, either a cable or a laptop, you just don't sync up right. I thought I pushed it in all the way on Thursday. This one's 100%. Luckily, when we log back in, it didn't go right to the top. when I first started at community business college, we were in a strip mall, and at the end was a convenience store. And I said, see, it's all convenient because you can come in, learn computers, and do your grocery shopping. And then I said, what we need to do is get exercise bikes in every classroom. And the way it works is you have to pedal to generate electricity in your laptop. And then you're motivated, because if you stop pedaling, you lose your Excel worksheet. You kind of start all over again. So then we can be an exercise bar, computer lab, and grocery shopping. Oh, and it's a gas station too, so you can do everything at once. My idea got vetoed though, so we never did it. But now, with a Peloton and everything, I was just ahead of my time.
Somewhere in London or something, they do that to get your points for the bus or whatever transportation. So they ride some kind of bike or something.
Really?
Yeah. People healthy.
Well, now some people are saying that working at computers at a desk all day is the new smoking. It's got just as bad in your health. Which is why we take a 10-minute break. It also seems to help concentration. So take a break once in a while. The other thing is when we started, we were kitty corner across the street from a Starbucks. Who isn't? And it was funny because there was one classroom over. And the classes started at 8. So at the 9 o'clock break, one student, you'd see her just speed walk, zoom across the window. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, she comes zooming back, Starbucks in hand. They had the drink for her every morning at 8:05, no, 9:05, pardon me. So she could pick it up, come back, and make it before break was over. And she said, that's why I'm under pressure and I got to walk fast. And I won't stop walking fast. Gives me a little break, a little exercise, and I get my coffee. That's a good idea. Expensive, but good.
Yeah. Coffee at work.
She didn't like that. She liked the
Oh.
Starbucks. Starbucks. I can't really put it. Some people can.
The difference that it's lesser quality than other coffee. It's
Well,
not very strong. It's very light.
I didn't ask her what she's getting, but she could be getting a cafe mocha with caramel whip, all that stuff. Sure, we can match that. Some of the drinks, they sound more like desserts.
Yeah, it's like for the like the appearance and all that.
Unicorn. Unicorn frappe or something like that. And it was,
It's a shiny drink.
it was glitter.
See?
It was edible glitter with sugar and all colors. And then they had streaks on the side. And man, that was like it's a sugar high. That same student once came in. She said, tomorrow I have a doctor's appointment. Is that okay? I said, sure. Yeah, that's all right. No problem. She said, okay, I got to get my blood test. So she did. And then, like on Thursday, she said, I have to go back tomorrow. I got to take another blood test. Okay. She said, I messed it up. I said, how can you mess with the blood test? She said, well, I went in, I took the blood test, and they called me up and said, have you ever been diagnosed with hypoglycemia before? She's like, no. He said, "Are you sure? Did you do anything before you came in?" She said, "Well, I went to Krispy Kreme and had a couple of donuts."
Oh.
And he said, "Oh, you're not supposed to eat anything before you come in."
Oh.
And the Krispy Kreme just really upped your sugar.
Yeah.
So they thought something was wrong. So they said, "Okay, come back Friday. This time, don't eat anything before you come in."
Go fast.
Yeah. Oh, the way Krispy Kreme does it was, Modesto, they had, when they opened, they had lines around down the street, but you could see the machines do them. And like the glazed donuts, they don't just run them across with little sugar. It's this waterfall of sugar, and they go slowly through, which is why they're completely covered in it. And yeah, no wonder. Sweet all right. I am not really a donut fan, but I will say that when they're warm, they just come out. It's the warm that's what I do. When I'm calling, used to go to Mr. T's at 2 a.m. because they're open 24 hours, and they would just take them out and they'd be warm.
Yeah, regular donuts from the bakery or something. New up and coming stuff.
Oh yeah. Do you remember Cronut? Cronut is a donut made out of croissant dough. And for a while, that was a big thing.
That's the sugar.
Right? For all course, right?
The donut shop here in town, people come from out of town.
Yeah.
They say it's really good compared to some of the other.
Well, sometimes too, it's memories. If you grew up going to the donut shop with your mom and dad or things, or just the ambiance too. And it really does make a difference. You could have the same donut at home, and it's not going to be the same because you're getting an experience. All right, so we are back. So there is another way that you can change how your documents look. And you can actually select some different styles. So to do that, we're going to click this little cog up here. And you should see custom form styles. This one here. So what we're going to do is change the style of our forms. And again, that includes invoices, purchase orders, the works. Click on that. Here it comes. So this will tell you what you're currently using. It's standard. This is what everybody uses when they start QuickBooks. It's just the default. So if for no other reason other than that, it's a good idea to change it. You do have the actions over here. And if you want to see what it's going to look like, you can preview PDF. Make sure that you have your open screens turned on. Basically let your browser open a new window. So you have to give it permission. And Here, for example, is my invoice. And this is what it would currently look like. And you'll notice, except for my DCS big old logo right here, everything else will look very generic. Basically shades of gray. So we're going to change that. Now, it makes a difference if you are printing on paper. If you're going to change the colors, you have to have the color printer to do it. It could be a laser printer, inkjet, but otherwise it might not work. By the way, another easy way to do this is you can buy the paper that you print on can be different colors. They even sell it like a cream color. So it's just not white. It's a little off white. And there's different, of course, different shades, but just something that makes yours stand out can make a huge difference. And what I would do is I would suggest, though, that don't use things that are too fancy. Like one type of paper they have is marble. And by the way, if you're doing a resume, same thing. It looks like a sheet of marble they just pulled out of the ground. I mean, it looks really good. The problem with using it as a document is those little lines can cause confusion, especially if somebody on the other end is using a scanner. Those lines look like letters or can confuse it. And if a letter is printed just right on the line, it can mess up the scan and it thinks it's the wrong word or something. So try to keep it plain, but you can use different colors. I wouldn't use hot pink. Well, let's see. Who does that? I think my utility, my electricity will do that. If you are late, they send out a statement in hot pink to get your attention. So if you didn't get the message the first time, I guess if you see the hot pink, you'll see it. All right, what we're going to do is edit, though. So here's kind of a preview of what we just saw with the invoice. And it's going to show you what it's going to look like. So right now we're on the design phase. The desktop version of QuickBooks, you can actually do forms independently. So if you wanted a blue invoice and a red purchase order, you could do that. Here you can't. So the first thing you'll see is change up the template. Go ahead and click on that. And this will show you the different options from which to choose. And you kind of get an idea how they're going to look here. So there's airy new, airy classic, modern, fresh, bold, friendly. Now, they're just using marketing words here. I'm not sure this one particularly looks friendly. But you do have a please in here. So maybe that's why they call it friendly, because there's the word please, pay. Instead of pay up now. Here's bold. Here's modern. And you can just thumb through these. So I'll let you go ahead and choose one you like. You can pick any style. Just pick one that is different than we started with. So I'm going to go with friendly. Oh, it does have a thank you too, so I guess that makes it friendly. The others? I don't think the others had the thank you, no. Okay. So there's that. So now I'm on the friendly version. Next, you've got make logo edits. If you want, you can change your logo here. And then you can also change the style. So if you don't want to see it, you can hide the logo. Or right now, I've got it set to large. I can make it small, or even say medium. You can also change how it shows on the documents by either putting it center align, left align, or right align. I like it left. I like it to be with the name. So there we go. But again, I'll let you choose. If you want to make it smaller, you can. Super large. Just from experience, I like it to not take up a lot of room and really not to go any further than, say, this imaginary line it goes all the way across. Here's why. Go to large. So now, when I've got it set to large, see how the bottom of my logo forces everything down further? Well, on this 2-item example, it's no big deal. But if I had, let's say about 4 items, what it could do is force another page. Well, there's nothing wrong with a 2-page invoice, but just so it can have a larger logo, and so I want it as large as I can make it without taking up any extra space. So any vertical space here. I don't really care about the horizontal space because I got lots of room right there. But that's just my 2 cents. Let's go to try other colors. And here again, you can choose the color scheme. So for Thanksgiving, you could go orange. And by the way, you can change these by season if you like. I tend to gravitate more towards dark colors because I have a habit of always thinking of printing. Even though I know half my things won't be printed, I still think, what if they were? And the things that I used to run into is you'd have black and white printers, like laser printers, and color inkjet printers. And everybody likes color inkjet printers, but when you start using up a whole bunch of cartridges, it's really expensive. This guy I know owns a laser or a printer shop, and he buys just pallets of old equipment. And what he's doing, he's looking for the laser printers. And I said, really? In this day and age, you want the old laser printers, cartridge printers? He goes, yeah, accountants love them. I said, why? He said, because they're running lots of drafts and they want to see it on paper. If you do it on the inkjet, it gets pretty expensive. On the old laser jets, he said, the older the better, because they come in, you get this big toner cartridge, and it will last you a year because it's just packed full of toner, and it runs it through. And he said he likes those. Also, they don't stain if you spill coffee on them, whereas the inkjet can run if it gets wet. Laser printer, it's cooked on there, so it won't run if it gets wet. I said, really? People are spilling that much coffee? He said, yeah. Maybe it's they're afraid they might, and they're going for the safe way. I don't know. But anyway, so I think that way. So I like the contrast, but you can pick any color you like. There's a light green. If you do print it on a black and white printer, of course, you'll get shades of gray rather than the color. If you use a darker color, you get a higher contrast. So that's almost looks like black and white there. So I'll go with the blue here. Next, you can get choosy with your font. You can actually change the font styles. So right now we're looking at Helvetica. Helvetica is what's called a sans serif font. You can choose like Times New Roman, and Times New Roman is a serif font. What's the difference? Let's see if you can see it. So here's the capital letter I, if you can see on my screen here. See how the I has a little hat, little foot? That's actually called a serif. When I change it back to a Helvetica, that's a sans serif. So now see the capital I? It's printed with no hat, no foot, just a plain simple line, kind of like you're doing if you're doing it freehand. So you can choose any one of those two. Courier makes it look like the old typewriter. You want to do that? And then there's Arial. Arial is a sans serif font, and it's more like the Helvetica to start with. So it's up to you. They actually did a study as to which is easier to read. And they wanted to know, is it the sans serif fonts or the serif fonts? And what they found is if you're reading a novel or a lot of text, you want to guess which one will work better? To me, it's counterintuitive. It's the one with the hat and feet, the serif fonts. And apparently, it gave enough contrast between the paper and the ink to be a more pleasant read. And people had better attention from that than the sans serif. On the other hand, if it's a quick headline or something they want to read quickly, then the sans serif fonts are better. In fact, when you're driving on the freeway, you'll notice all the signs are in the same font. They're in a version of Helvetica, and it's sans serif. It doesn't have the half a feet. So it's just a quick read. And you think, well, it doesn't make a difference. And in this, it might or might not, but it will make a distinct style if everybody else's font is Helvetica and yours is Times New Roman. You can also change the font size. I'm gonna go up to 12. So if you have people who are reading it who might not be able to see well, make it bigger. The trade-off is the larger the font and the more you have on here, the less room for more lines there'll be. So you'll end up with more pages. So again, if that's a problem, you can consider that. And again, this is one of those things you could try it one way for a while. And if it causes a problem or say, I'm going at 2 pages an awful lot, I'm gonna switch back. And by all means, switch back. You've also got down here the option to edit your print settings. And this is what it would physically look like on a piece of paper. So you'll see there's a margin across the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. So you can adjust those. If you're running all your documents, all your invoices, purchase orders, etc., on letterhead for some reason, then you probably will need to add like another inch to the top, depending on how big the letterhead is. So you'll see you get a big gap at the top, and that allows the paper to print at the right spot. I'm going to set it back though, because I'm not going to worry about that. Since I already have it printing here with my logo, I really don't need letterhead. It's kind of taking the place of it. You'll see you have an option here. You can fit the printed form with the paste up in the window envelope. If you are physically mailing things out and you're using those envelopes that have a little window, sometimes they have a glassine window, which is like, it looks like plastic, it's actually paper that you can see through. Or maybe it's just an empty window. What this will do is it'll print this information right here where it's going, right in that window. So if I print this document out, and QuickBooks has done its job, when I fold it into thirds, this right here will be in the window where it's going to, and then if it has a return address window, that's going to show there. And then the other option, if you wanted to adjust for you to do letterhead paper, see how I took out my logo? My logo and my address are gone. So you're using that if you have a pre-printed invoice paper. That has become pretty rare. Almost everybody just runs it off the printer because it's a lot cheaper, a lot easier, and you can use a blank piece of paper for this, and it does a pretty good job. You know, back in the old days, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, some companies wanted to impress everybody. So they did have paper that you had to use for invoices and for purchase or anything. So that way it looked very neat, crisp, and it seemed like, wow, you're a real tech company. But now with the printers doing such a good job, it's kind of lost its panache. So in case you do, now you know how to do it. The next thing we're going to go into is the content area up here. So here's what you can do. You've got a few edit points here where you can make changes to the content. So at the very top, I'm going to click on the top one. Here are the things I can change. You'll notice I don't have a phone number displaying, so I can turn that on. And there's now my phone number to be included. I can click on address here. And then since I'm doing domestic sales, I can hide the country, which will save me a line. So where it says US, I click that, and it makes it disappear. If you had a website, you can include that. I'll throw in an extra line. However, I'm going to turn that off too, save space. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see everything is preceded by the word invoice. So it's telling everybody who sees this, this is an invoice. If you don't want it to be included that way, you can change the terminology. So I'll call it invoice for payment, and you'll see it changes up there. You can call it anything you like. I'm going to stick with invoice. Actually, these are, pretty standard. You can also turn on and off the form number and the custom transaction numbers. So if you want them to display or not, turn them off. You'll see now I don't have an invoice number. I don't know why you'd want to do that, frankly, because you, when they write their checks to you, you want them to see this number because that's going to help you keep track and match their payment to the right invoice. So almost always you're going to leave that on. But again, if the boss says, hey, I don't want that on anymore, I'm like, okay, boss, you're the boss. You can display the shipping address because when you set up the shipping date or the shipping addresses and the billing addresses, they can be different. So the billing address is where this bill goes to. The shipping address may be where the stuff that you're sending goes to, and they can be different. So if it's like a company, they can have a warehouse that's in one city, but the one who's paying the bills is in another city. Well, obviously the invoice has to go to the one who pays the bills. If you send it to the wrong place, it'll probably get there, but it'll take an extra week or two whenever they do their internal mail. So you can display both on here. If you're not doing shipping that's separate from the people who are paying it, you can just leave the one on here. So I use the story that when I worked at Tri-Valley Growers, our department dealt with labels. Labels for canned good products. And sometimes things would get a little slow in the print shop and they wouldn't have any labels to print. So they would just do general things. And one of the things they did is they imprinted in the company green color the logo and return address on envelopes. But they used our logo, return address, and envelopes. And what would happen is the people in San Francisco, who was the headquarters, would ask for those because they were cheap. They were free basically to them, just basically the cost of blank envelopes. Whereas if they paid to have them imprinted, especially in San Francisco, that gets pretty expensive. The only problem was they never asked for the address to be changed. So what would happen is they would send out invoices using these envelopes. Now the invoice was correctly printed, remit to San Francisco, blah, 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 like this. But because the address had a different one, sometimes their customers would use that address for their check. And then the check would come to us. And it was for like $1.5 million. Like, oh, that's a nice check. I wonder if anybody's missing it. So we call up and say, hey, we're gonna send this over to you. Interoffice mail. Okay, great. Remind them, fix their remittance address. So they were sending it to the wrong place. You definitely don't want that. So if you do have a lot of those, you can turn them on, the shipping. If you have it both turned on, the bill to and the ship to, and they're the same address in your customer file, the same address will just print twice, which that can be fine too. And then if you want to remind them when the payment's due, you can leave that turned on, or you can take it off and they'll just know. See, if I take it off, it doesn't say when it's due. If you are going to put a due date, terms, then definitely turn it on. Because the rule is you can't charge anybody late fees or interest if you haven't warned them in writing of when it's due. And this does it. This tells you when it was due. And they say, oh, I didn't know. You say, hey, can you see invoice number 12345? It says right there. The next thing you've got is custom fields. So if there's not enough categories on here for you, you can adjust this and add your own fields. So you click on Manage Custom Fields. And there you go, you make it the field. So let's say I'm a car dealership and I want to track the type of car, customer car type. I can tell it in all my sales forms and have it print on the form. In this case, because it's a customer field only, I don't really want it on my purchase orders, my vendors. What do they care? It'll always be empty because they're not the customers, right? So I don't have to turn it on them both. If it's a field that you're using for everybody, then by all means, you could turn it on. And conversely, if it is a vendor field, you can show it here and not show it up there, or both. Then the option is to print on the forms. If you say yes, then it's going to show up on the forms. I am not going to add a custom field at this point. Yes, I do. But just know it's there. So let me go back to the edit. And by telling it no, I didn't want to save it, I lost my changes. So I'll make them back again. So I did include a phone number. Oh, by the way, I don't know who started this. Somebody somewhere, and I see it all the time. They use periods instead of the dashes, and then parentheses are gone. So I guess if you want to be hip, you can do that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. I never got the memo. Nobody said from now on we should really do this. I know you hit the shift key more often, but other than that, I don't really understand why. But as long as the numbers are distinct, I guess that
It's
works.
like the double space,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. When I learned to type, it was period and then space. And part of
How do you even do that?
when you're, well, here's the thing, when you're used to it, Word used to actually count as an error. It would always put little underlines. And now it doesn't. So now it's acceptable. What you can do is if you're using Microsoft Word for that, it's you can set it to automatically do period space to period space, and it will do an autocorrect as you type it. So you don't have to think about it. You can still do it your own way. But yeah, that's the way I learned is you had to do you could do the state abbreviations, and then it was the Chicago style manual said at the end of each sentence on a typewriter, after you put period, you put 2 spaces after. But they've since dropped that. So yeah, things do change. That one kind of makes sense because why have extra spaces if you don't need them? And one of the reasons was, let me go back to my font style. It was because of this font called Courier. I said this looks like a typewriter. Well, one of the reasons, or one of the things about the typewriter font is the width of each letter is the same. So like if I use Helvetica, the I, just one little bitty line, right? The letter M is a lot wider and takes up more horizontal space. On computers, they can adjust for that automatically. On typewriters, no way. So you can see here, even though my description of the item is spaced out, it looks a little spaced out. So that was why you needed the 2 spaces after the period to clearly indicate a new sentence starts. Otherwise, it could look squished together and you could miss the start of the new sentence. So at least that's what I was taught. So fonts really do matter. So anyway, let's go back to our edit here. Okay, so I'm not going to add any custom fields, and I am done. As you can see, if you don't click done, you click the X to close, you lose what you've done. Okay. You'll see up here in the right-hand corner, you've got new style. If you want, you can create multiple styles or different styles for different items. So here's my current invoice, as we did before. You can see now I can give it a name. So now I can have different styles. Why would you want to do that? If you want to be creative is one thing. Another thing is, remember I said you may have invoices where there is a separate shipping date and invoices you don't. So in this case, I might say invoices without shipping. Did I say shipping dates? Shipping addresses. So this only shows the bill to, right? And then when I click done, now I've got two styles, standard and without. Let's go to customers and let's make another invoice. And again, choose any customer. And any product you like. And make sure it's today's date, because we don't make anybody past due. So I'm going to pick Sarah Jones, create her an invoice for her. Make it today, and then down below, you've got this button to customize. So now you'll see I've got invoices without shipping. So if this is, let's say most of my invoices do have the shipping address, but I have some that don't, and I want it to not show it, I can click on this, and when it prints, it will print in the correct style that I used. So it's going to save it, and I'm going to print a preview. And eventually it shows up. There it comes. So see, she doesn't have the shipping address. Now, here's the thing about QuickBooks. Because I've used this once on her, the next time I create an invoice, it's going to remember which invoice I used last time. So unless this is a one-time deal, it'll just keep going that way over and over and over again. So that way, I'm going to close it. I don't have to remember which customers use which invoice. Once I've set them, they'll stay that way until I change it again. If I change back, then it will stay changed back until I change it again. So I'm going to save and close that. Let's go back up again. We're going to look at a couple other ways we can edit our styles. So I'm going to go back to my standard one. So when we edited this, We just did the top third. We have two other sections that we can edit. So you'll see down here, this is where most of your ordering information shows up. You'll see the product and service. If you turn on include description, it will carry over whatever you've included for your items when you set up your products. If you put in more detailed descriptions, it'll put it here. If you turn it off, it just gives the item name and puts the description, short description next to it. If you use categories, you can use those and those will show up. I didn't, so they don't show up. You can also change it so that if you're just doing services, you can show it like this. So instead of showing a separate column for how many they've ordered, it'll just say 2 at whatever, and then the total amount. So see how it combines them over here. So it's just a bit of a different style. Personally, I like the columns. I like the grids. One of the things I like about it is you can look at it quickly and basically see the same for each one instead of having to read each line. If you want to, you can incorporate an account summary up here. And then it shows you all this. Again, it's a trade-off. You can show that, but in return, you're going to lose some more space to do other things. So again, if you got good customers, you really don't need it. That's basically your statements. But you know, you'll see a lot of those, like credit card statements. We'll do that all the time. I'll tell you what the previous balance was, your payment, and then apply it, and then what's current. And if current's left off or started off with 0, then it's just whatever is on this invoice is what needs to be paid. You'll see there is an option for SKU. Only a couple of templates have this. I think Airy, yeah. The Airy template will show this. This is, SKU stands for shopkeeping unit, and it's basically a number assigned to every product. If you are using the UPC code, Universal Product Code number for your stock keeping unit, that'll show up there too. That's handy, especially if you're dealing with a lot of very similar items. So an example of that is like clothing. Say t-shirt, I think, oh, this is a t-shirt. Well, wait a minute, is it a men's t-shirt, a women's t-shirt, a child's t-shirt? And then is it a girl's t-shirt, a boy's t-shirt? All right, you say, all right, women's. Okay, so is it a large, medium, small, extra, you know, all the sizes? Okay, so it's a large. Great. What color? Yellow, blue. See, what happens is each one of those, every color will have its own number. Every size and color will be a distinct number. So you can have one product that can have 20 numbers based on what it is. The reason you need to keep those separate is because when you order them, so you're ordering 100 at a time, you want to make sure you're ordering the ones that are selling, not the ones you don't need. So that's why there's so many products there that'll have different numbers. And you can tell when you go into the store, look at even like tomato sauce. If you look at the different cans and different brands, each size will have a different number, even if it's the same brand. And then the same size and different brands will have its own number. And that's how the store keeps track of what's selling, what the price is, when they want to put it on discount, and everything. So you can display it here. I'll turn it off because I didn't really set it up that way. If I turn it on with no stock keeping units in there, it'll just be a blank column. And I don't need that. You do have some other activity options. If we'd wanted to group the activities and we set up different days where they order things. Right now it's set by day, but you can change it to by type. So we didn't really set up styles like that when we set up our items, but you can do that. You can also tell it to collapse the activity rows. So what it will do, if these items are the exact same thing, it'll group them together. So again, if it's t-shirts, it might group all the t-shirt types together, then all the pantsuit types together, and things like that. You can tell it to show the progress on line items. So if you've got estimates and you're working on a project, you can include that here. And then you can also show the markup on billable expenses, meaning when we went to our vendors and did, like, say, a special order, where you turned around and write off that purchase order, or not the purchase order, the bill, invoice the customer. We said it was billable, here's the customer. Then it's going to show up on here, separated out. Otherwise, it'll just show up on the regular list. And then if you're tracking time on behalf of a customer, so like an attorney's office who has an assistant working on your case, then it will show how much time was spent and break it down that way. So we didn't do that, so we're okay. And then we also have a third of our invoice down here, where you can show the subtitles, subtotals, title, I keep saying title, tax, shipping, total, and the balance due. So you can show discounts if you've got a discount. We don't have discounts, but if you did, here's what it would look like. And it would show your discounts on here. If you have an amount on deposit for them, you could show it there. So again, if you're in an attorney's office and they have $1,000 on deposit, and this is a $200 bill, you could say, you know, we burned off 200, 800's left. And then if you're using estimates, you can incorporate the estimate here, and we'll add it there. So we just did it for practice. I'm gonna turn all these back off. You can see again, if you want to incorporate your estimates that you created, they can do that here. And then if you want to put a little tagline on there, like if you have a company slogan or something, you can incorporate it here. So simple thanks. And it will show up right here. You could say, come to our Black Friday sale. We're having it on Thursday. That's what I was getting emails today about Black Friday starting early. So you can put that on your invoices. And then the footer text is down below at the bottom. Oops. So you'll see by the page number at the bottom, it appears here. So you can use either or. If you want this on the left-hand side, you can. Either way, or you don't have to use it at all. So just a couple of different options. If you've got a customer who's not paying up, you could say, make sure you pay this one on time or I'm coming for you, that kind of thing. And then the third category up here is emails. As you've seen when we've been working with our forms, that it always gives you the option to email us rather than save, save an email, that type of thing. So what this will do is do the layout of your email. Now for this to work, your email has to be one that can accept graphics and text together. Most of them do these days, but just if you ever have problems, that can be the biggest problem. You can see you got the different things to work on. You can do a sales receipt or an invoice. You can have all the details or make it summarized. And then what it will do is convert your invoice into a PDF and attach it. Okay, if I don't do this, what it will do is just tell them, here's what you owe, without having a PDF of the invoice. So you can do that if they don't care to have an official invoice. The only downside of attaching a PDF is it does slow it down a bit. And some email servers will want to scan the PDF. And sometimes, depending on how they work, that can slow down the delivery. You know, and when I say slow down, I'm not saying it's a week. I'm saying it's like hours. So instead of today, say you send it out 4 o'clock, instead of getting it like that, you know, it might be 2 hours. Well, that's 6 o'clock and they've gone home for the day, so they won't get it till the next morning. If that's important to you, then you can turn it off and try to get it sooner. Otherwise, the PDF is handy because it shows them the invoice in the traditional format to go along with it. And then down below, you'll see here's the text you can use. They put in some generic stuff. You can modify it. You can delete it completely and start over. Things like that. Happy Thanksgiving, you could say. You also can set up a reminder email. And you'll see at the top here, it'll go as a subject, as a reminder. Okay. So QuickBooks claims that by doing this, you can edit your invoices that will turn heads and open wallets. Theoretically, get them paid faster. I think the advantage of doing all this is get them paid correctly. So I'm going to click on done. By clicking done, it'll save it. And there's my 2 styles. You can also generate another style if you want it more serious. You know, let's say they're going past 30 days, now you're on 60 days, and you want to make a more serious style invoice. Put it all in red. You could do that as well. And then in your emails, you can have it set up with more serious text, like please do this, or we will have to suspend your account, or something like that. And again, just keep in mind, these are defaults. While you're working with any of these, like the invoice we just did, you can make changes too. You can customize as you go along. And you can customize and save it, or you can just customize it once for the one-shot deal. So lots of different options. And like I said, it's just a good way to make your business distinct from everybody else who's using QuickBooks. I'm gonna go back to my sales because I believe I need to collect some money from one of my customers. Yeah, $5. So my new styles must have worked because she paid it. I'm gonna send it directly to checking account and save and close. And now the customers are all back with 0 balances. So does anybody have any questions on the modifications you can make and why you want to make them? Another good reason to do this, if you just started a job at a company that's using QuickBooks, make the quick change on the invoice and go and say, you know, I thought we might want to make our invoices distinct. What do you think of this? And the boss, I didn't know you could do that. How'd you do that?
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
and then they think, wow, you must know your stuff, even though, you know, I knew how to push 2 buttons, right? But because a lot of what happens is just in the everyday hustle and bustle, you don't get a chance to really delve into some of the extra things, and that's definitely an extra, but it is handy. And like I said, it can be very helpful to make your business stand out and look unique. So that way the right bills get paid, the right deliveries get made, and everybody's happy. All right, well, if no other questions, we are done for the evening. You can save any of the changes that you like. And you really can't hurt anything with that, except if you did change something like with the shipping addresses and everybody was used to using those invoices, the shipping addresses, that could be a little confusing. But other than that, fonts and everything else pretty much work. So have a good evening, and we'll be back here tomorrow. All right, you're welcome. Have a good night.